Hello, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you're joining us later and recording. My name is Sam. I teach English, literature, and drama at a secondary school in Reading. But I'm very interested in how we embed the climate, environment, sustainability throughout the curriculum, and in the process, educating myself about these issues. Last year, I was involved with Dr. Kim Polgreen to setting up Oxford Climate Club. So a series of workshops, of interesting visits to various projects working to solve some of our environmental and climate problems. And we've now, in the context of social distancing, and moved online for a series of careers talks. And the purpose of this and the ensuing talks is to introduce the wide range of different jobs and roles which touch on climate, sustainability, the environment, and the various ways in which people from different walks of life have become involved. What were their roots? Did they choose to study a particular pathway, or did they decide later on? And really to give the floor over to you as students studying GCSEs, A levels, baccalaureates, the opportunity to put questions directly to them. Without further ado, our first speaker is Dr. Kim Polgreen herself. So I think I will let her introduce herself and say a little bit about what she does, and then I'm going to ask her some questions for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then it'll be over to you.
Hello everybody, thank you very much Sam for that lovely introduction. My name's Kim Polgreen. I live in Oxford and I've had quite a long career working in sustainability, and Sam and I will be talking a little bit about that. But now what I'm doing is working with teenagers on climate and sustainability issues. And in particular, I'm running various projects which show young people that there are exciting new careers developing in climate solutions. And this after school club is one of those projects.
Okay, thank you. So I thought I would start today by asking you a question which seemed particularly apt on a very gloriously sunny September afternoon, which is how do you interact with nature on a daily basis and in your day-to-day life?
Well, I'm really lucky, and I've been lucky during lockdown that I've got a nice little garden, and I've been growing tomatoes and beans and courgettes, which are just about all finished now. I live very close to a nice bit of outdoor space on the edge of Oxford, and I take my dog there every day. And I'm lucky enough to be able to work in the university research woodland just outside Oxford called Whiten Woods. And that's where I'm doing some of my projects with teenagers. So I'm super lucky and have lots of opportunities to engage with nature. My most fun thing that I found recently was something called a rove beetle walking through the leaf litter in Whiten Woods. Very spectacular beetle.
I've also seen your dog has made a Zoom cameo in the background of the video, even as you were speaking about it. So if we think backwards from now, have you always been interested in sustainability? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I think I'm old enough that sustainability wasn't a word that meant what it means now when I was a child. But when I was 6 years old, I went to a little village school, and everybody across the ages in that school were all in one big classroom, and there was a huge window at the end. It's one of those old Victorian buildings. And if a bird like a kestrel or something was spotted outside the window, the school would just stop, and we'd all just have a look at the bird, and then probably we'd go and do drawings about it or sing a song about it afterwards. It was that sort of school. And I was really lucky to have that introduction. It was natural for me to be out in the fields getting stung or scratched, and I learned to swim in the river. So I think that's where it all started, really. And then, of course, it carried on by loving all the David Attenborough programmes that I've watched faithfully for years and years.
And were you able to carry that on when you were a little bit older in secondary school? Did it affect what subjects you chose to study?
Yes, absolutely.
Or what you did in your free time?
Yeah, absolutely. Both. So I've for my A levels, I studied geography and biology and maths because I thought it was a good backup for those two. But I was really passionate about physical geography and biology. Um, and yes, I mean, over my free time, I've done quite a lot of conservation work with local volunteer groups, and I've planted a lot of trees, and I've done a lot of bird watching and that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess 6-year-old me is still inside there somewhere doing the same things.
Perfect. So you studied geography, biology, maths.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to university?
I did, yes, yes. I wasn't very good at that bit of my life, and I ended up at a fantastic university, which I loved, but not the right course for me. So I started off doing a joint degree in biology and geography, and then found that the geography course was really much more focused on human geography than I wanted. I wasn't so interested in humans in those days, more interested in them now. And so I switched to doing biochemistry because I thought that was really a deep dive into how life worked. And actually, I loved that very much. And I ended up studying biochemistry for a further degree after my first degree.
And what did that lead to?
That led to a lot of time in rather cold labs and some really interesting findings. But ultimately, I decided that was not the route for me. So having spent a few years going down that route, I backtracked and decided I really wanted to work with the natural world and the environment. And those days, the environment was going up the agenda. More people were concerned about it, not at the same level as they are now, but certainly it was increasing. And so I switched and did a master's degree here in Oxford in environmental change and management. And that set me on a new career path, which then I followed for the next sort of 10 years or so.
And can I just ask how did you hear about this opportunity to reorient your career and what you were doing? And was it a big leap at the time?
It was quite a big deal to switch direction like that, but people were very kind and supportive, and I was very much encouraged to apply for the course. It was a new course. I was the first within the first cohort, and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to do it. And I think they liked somebody with a slightly different background, who by that time was slightly older than your average graduate student. So no, it worked really well.
What I guess were the key things that you took, key skills, insights that you took away from this environmental change and management?
From the masters, that it was all about communication. That's when I started really understanding that this is all about people. The animals and the environment are super important, and I love all that. But actually, to protect them and to protect us, it was all about communication and interacting with people. And I decided that, in fact, the community that I was going to dive into and work with was the business community. And that's what I did. When I finished my master's degree, I went and worked in businesses, doing all sorts of environmental work. And again, that was very new within the business sector. So it was a fun time. There was very few of us in the country doing that kind of work at the time.
And so you were a bit of a pioneer, both in terms of studying this master's and then the work you went on to do afterwards. What was most satisfying about that job in the business community, and what were the frustrations?
I think you're right to use the word pioneer. There was a sort of gang of us across the country who all got together and formed a new institute. And so we all sort of made ourselves into environmental professionals, which wasn't a thing back then. Now there's lots and lots of people are environmental professionals, but then we were just working out what that meant. So that was very satisfying, and meeting people from all sorts of different businesses, from retail, from manufacturing, from logistics, people all kind of facing the same issues within their organizations. Everybody was trying to persuade their senior managers that this was important, that companies really needed to take into account the pollution that they were creating and the climate impacts of their activities. So we were all having the same challenges, but in different industries. So that was very rewarding. The biggest frustrations are the same things. It was trying to get your message over and not be thought of just as a complete, hippie Fruit Loop who just happened to be wandering around the corridors of a business. They'd hire environmental managers because they thought they ought to, but they wouldn't really listen to them.
What you said, that realizing the importance of communication skills and kind of human connections was a key insight from the learning, and then I presume from the actual work you did afterwards. What can you give maybe one example of a really effective communication or intervention in one of these contexts?
Yes, I started off being quite formulaic, quite scientific about it. I wrote, audit reports and said that, this was wrong and that was wrong and this needed to change. And what the guys in the factories taught me actually was the thing that worked best was engaging with them as individuals and talking to them about the fact they lived around this factory and their kids went to school down the road, and if there was pollution coming out of the chimney stacks and if there was pollution going into the canal next door, that affected them. And in fact that was much more effective. They would take actions based on their emotional connection with what was happening, much more than, and that was effective, and that was much more effective than me giving audit reports to their senior managers and saying that we shouldn't be pouring oil into the canal. So that was a good lesson. Those guys are great.
Have your experiences given you some general insights or advice that you would give to a 16 or 17-year-old, 18-year-old today who is deeply concerned about sustainability and the environment, but isn't really sure what their next steps are if they want that to be an important part of their life, what they study, what they do if they go to study?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, my life took a bit of a zigzag. I did different things. I didn't end up doing what I thought I'd start off doing, or didn't end up where I thought I'd end up. And I think that's great. And I think that's fine. And that is the way that fun careers go. I think that what I would advise any person doing their A-levels now would be just to follow your passion. If you're interested in sustainability, that doesn't mean to say you have to have a sustainability career. You can go and do what you want to do because sustainability will affect everything. Just have a look and see how the topics intersect. And don't worry if you don't know what you want to do. Just, as I say, follow the subjects that interest you. Your future jobs probably don't even exist yet. So there's no point sort of focusing on one particular end. That's a very sort of traditional view, and it really isn't relevant anymore. And as I said, your work life can change very much over your lifetime. And there are particular skills that I encourage every young person to develop, and they are applicable to whatever career you go into, and in fact whatever walk of life, whatever you do, whether you're a parent or an employee or a citizen, a neighbour. And those are the sorts of skills that people like the World Economic Forum keep talking about now, the future skills that young people need. And that's problem solving, critical thinking, which means not just taking things at face value, but saying, hey, what actually is this person trying to say to me? What are their biases? What are their motivation? Be a clever thinker and be a good listener. Listening skills are absolutely key to communication. You might think it's about getting your point across, but actually you get your point across by listening to other people. And systems thinking, that's probably something that teachers talk about quite a bit, but we all know instinctively that things don't happen in isolation. If our kickboxing lesson timing gets changed, that has all sorts of ramifications to our family arrangements and the other things that we can do in our lives. We know that one thing affects another, but to really understand that is how we're going to solve sustainability issues. We can tweak a few things, I believe, in the way we do things, and they can have hugely positive impacts on our well-being and the sustainability of our activities.
A kind of running theme that I've detected from a lot of things you're saying is the importance of the environment in the sense of a local space. So whether that is kind of a source of joy and awe from interacting with nature, whether that is the environment in which a business's decisions and practices have an impact on the other living things and non-living things around it. I suppose, do you think that has helped and is tied with all of the skills that you've described, thinking things in terms of systems, understanding individuals and where they're coming from? How important is that kind of local communitarian sense of the environment?
Very important, yes. I mean, I think we try and channel people into studying and into work, and then the work is to earn money, and the money is to buy the house and all the things that we want to make us happy. And in fact, there's a bit of a shortcut that we can take there. We can just go outside and have a walk. And I think a lot of us have learned that during these COVID months, that really being more anchored into your local environment can spark, the joy that we're looking for. But also help us to understand, that systems thinking. I mean, to understand a little bit about how, the plants, what you plant in your garden, what impact that has on your local wildlife. That's the beginning of systems thinking. One thing affects the other. So does that answer the question? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you. And a final thing from me, what do you learn, or what do you most appreciate from thinking more about your more recent work with young people and thinking about them in terms of skills and careers? Have they taught you anything, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, young people I work with are so sparky. I mean, I'm in total awe of all the people who are doing the climate strikes. But I mean, I ran a workshop recently up in White Woods with a group of people who are making videos about what scientists are doing up there. And the resulting videos are so much fun and so good at communicating. I wouldn't have created the same sort of video. So yeah, it's great fun. They were natural communicators in a way that I think perhaps when we get a bit older, we get a bit formulaic. So I appreciate that. And it's their future, so their passion and things comes through very effectively.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to become a conduit for questions from our dispersed audience.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.